Role here as I tell you a little bit about my friend and colleague, Andrew Goldberg. We'll have him up here in a second. So aside from White with Fear, Andrew has produced a bunch of award-winning films, one of which was screened here in 2020 called Viral: Anti-Semitism in Four Mutations. Also, A Yiddish World Remembered, and The Armenian Genocide, if you've seen any of those on PBS. He's done a great deal of work for PBS. He's included 55 episodes for HGTV, talk about something completely different. A food cooking series for the Magnolia Channel, and countless long and short form segments for CBS News Sunday Morning, NBC News, Fox News, E! Entertainment Television, Food Network, and National Public Radio. He's my good friend and colleague, Andrew Goldberg. Good movie.
Thank you.
So we're going to get right into the questions and answers here. Are we doing this in front of the step and repeat? Yes? No? Anyhow, so if you do have a question, please go over there by it says the Westport Library, and we'd love to hear what you have to say, and your questions in particular.
You mean you want them to stand over there?
Yeah, I think that's the best idea, so we can see you.
Or you can yell.
Or yes.
Well,
no questions? Okay, thanks, been great.
Hands shoot up. Nobody wants to be first.
Yes, sir. Well, no such luck. Okay.
Wait, do we have a question? Now I've done this all over the country. I've never had silence before.
Andrew.
Hi.
Hi, from a fellow CBS News alumnus. Congratulations. A brilliant film.
Thank you.
I think that your linear progression from Nixon to now was very important. But I just have to ask you, we knew about Nixon. How do you think Trump gets away with this other than admitting that we're basically a racist country?
Well, I happen to have all the answers. I think that we're all racist a little bit, but I think that we have been pouring Miracle-Gro on this. We've certainly been pouring Miracle-Gro on this since the end of slavery, but I think that there were efforts and there have been moments when it was done out of convenience. What changes with Nixon is that it becomes formula, planned, and strategic. And in that sense, I feel as if rather than spend 55 years healing, we spent 55 years intentionally and purposefully dividing, and it's that intentional idea. And so now what we're left with is a population that has these ideas very top of mind, and it didn't have to be that way. I don't know if I quite answered the question. I kind of answered around it a little bit, but I hope I did my best. Next question.
It was a hard question.
It was tough.
Yeah, there's one thing we have now that didn't exist in the Nixon era, actually, a lot of things. The big one is the internet, right? And so messages, good and bad, get multiplied in ways they could never be before. I'm looking around in this audience, which I'm grateful joined us here this evening, and I think everybody here knows this story. And I have great respect for how it was told. My question is there a plan to take this film and put it in the hands of the people who, dare I say it, need to see it? And I mean kids, at Staples High School, at high schools all around the country. Is there a plan so that people can be, elevated in their understanding of how we got here?
That's a good question. The challenge with any documentary is getting it seen. I mean, we are sort of the documentary filmmakers. We're sort of we tend to be the front line of, these social commentary efforts. And, people don't line up to see documentaries the way they do to see Marvel movies. We've got an educational outreach group that, it was actually a terrific one, Rocco Films, that will do its very, very best to get into schools and places like that. Whether they'll be successful, I don't know. We're talking to PBS right now. PBS, I think, wants this show, but I think is under enormous pressure from this administration to not exist. So, whether or not that can sort of, what that'll lead to is another question. We went to a lot of different networks who turned this show down. I think everyone is afraid in this environment. Some teachers from my son's high school came to see a screening of this in New York City, and I said, well, could you show it at the high school? And they said, no way, because they just don't want to hear it from parents. So, we tried very hard to make a nonpartisan film, and at first glance that might sound surprising, but that was why my decision was not to have a bunch of liberals just point the fingers at the other side. We wanted to get the people who did this to tell us themselves. The only one who I really wanted to interview was Stephen Miller, who I didn't get. But we got, I could have kept adding more operatives from any administration. And when we originally did this film, we included stuff on Reagan and all this stuff. And we had people from they all want to talk. It's surprising how much they won't shut up and want to tell you about what they do. They're very proud of their plans. But getting it seen is always the challenge. And even if we were to go to a place, who knows who will actually go into the room. That's the other part. It's like, well, we'll show it on college campuses. Well, I've shown things on college campuses and 4 students show up. So, unless you get teachers that assign these things, it's always tough. But, it starts with the documentaries and then hopefully it spreads. Well, YouTube is, it's infallible. Yes, you had a question? It is available.
So you're addressing it as you're saying it. I'm thinking more about it because the movie Catch Me, I'm Roger Stone it struck me similarly to this, where you had Roger Stone in his own words talking about how misinformation was a powerful tool. That was on Netflix for a while. As you chose the title for this film, White with Fear, I know that itself might have pushed away some people. So can you talk about maybe how you develop a promotional plan to get people to see? Or I'm thinking, as I go to a pretty evangelical church, and I've been a liberal there for 30 years, and everyone knows that. How do I take this and invite someone to watch it with me, or to talk about it and have conversations? Like, if we stay tribal, we can't get these messages out. And so I'd like you to maybe share a little bit more about how you chose that title.
Well, this will be on all the video on demand platforms on the 3rd, June 3rd. So it'll be on Amazon and Apple and Google and all the ones that you can click on your TV and what have you. The title, we wanted something clever. It could have been called Strategic Racism, or how conservative politicians have used race. I could have come up with any number. We thought it was kind of clever. Maybe now it's a little too on the nose. We came up with it 2 years ago. Now I almost feel like having the word white in the title might even, freak some people out. Everyone's so freaked out about everything all the time, everywhere they go. It's always sort of a challenge, to come up with the right name, because you want to attract people, but you want it to be good. So, you get it right, you don't. Sometimes we just sort of do our best. I've historically had titles that were way too long, and once I had a really bad title and someone said something like, it's a movie that's at least as good as its title. And that hurt. That one was not fun. Yes, another question. Thank you.
How about the graphic, though, behind you, Andrew? How do we end up with that?
This guy does only movie posters. He makes a whole living out of this. And I actually love the poster. I don't know that everyone will get it right away, but I got it. Yes, sir.
Don't you think the problem really is the educational system and the fact that 20% of our population, the American population, is functionally illiterate? And you can make people believe anything if they don't read and they really don't know anything. And I think our major problem is the uninformed voters in this country.
I do think that, I love that, you know, when you do a lot of public speaking like I do, they always teach you that you have to say the question back, but because we have a microphone, I don't have to say the question back, and I'm happy about that. But sure, our educational system has tons and tons of problems with it, but I know plenty of very well-educated people who believe a lot of nonsense, and I know people with, you know, PhDs and master's degrees that I can't believe the stuff that comes out of their mouths, and you know, I feel like we could teach them everything that we want to, but then they as soon as they hit 22 or 23, whenever they leave college or high school or what have you, they're sort of thrust into the world and they seem to forget everything that they learned, and they just get reprogrammed by what sort of their peers and their you know, phone feed is giving them. I mean, the amount of, I mean, I have a friend he's such a smart person. He's really smart. Like, I don't know that he knows very much, but his brain works really well. And he is convinced that there was just thousands and thousands of people doing all this ballot harvesting and secretly arranging it so that Joe Biden would win. And I don't know what to say to him. We went to private school together. I mean, I know, so we learned a lot of the same things. He went to Francis Parker in Chicago, which is like, you know, going to the Dalton School or Horace Mann or something here. And then I can't believe the stuff that comes out of his mouth. So yes, our education system is a failure, but it's who gets them after that too. Yes.
So I found it intriguing and enjoyable or interesting that you had so many folks from the inside of these different Republican campaigns. I think of the woman who was the former Breitbart editor. I think of Bannon. I think of I forget his name, the Trump's 2016, the heavyset guy.
Sam Nunberg.
Nunberg, that's it.
I'll tell him you described him that way.
Well,
I kid. I'm not. I don't talk to him. But
I have credibility, right?
We're not buddies. I mean, yeah.
The question I have for you, and I know it's speculation, but if those folks actually saw the completed first of all, have they seen the completed documentary?
No.
And what would be their reaction to it? Because it's all, I mean, would they say you edit it to make it spin?
No, they wouldn't say that.
That was my question.
No, we didn't take anybody out of context. I really work on making sure that what someone says, I put in what they mean. I don't do clever editing or anything like that. If they don't mean it, I won't use it. And I've had many arguments with not arguments, but you know, with these tortured conversations with our editors, like, is this really what this person was trying to say? So I don't think anybody would say that I took them out of context, but they might argue that they're not racist, or they might argue that they really are concerned about the issues that they put forth. I mean, this is the sort of complicated part of it, is that, you know, you look back in time and people say, I'm not talking about black people, I'm talking about busing. I'm not talking about black people, I'm talking about crime. I'm not talking about Hispanic people, I'm talking about immigration. All of these things, to quote Ann Haney Lopez, these phrases, these ideas are silent about race, and yet they only affect certain racial groups, and they drive all this there's all this racial animus that gets attached and connected to them. And I think that they might deny that that is what motivates them. But I don't think anybody would say they took it out of context. I haven't gone out of my way. Some of them have been copied on emails about the show. I haven't sort of gone out of my way because I just don't necessarily want to engage with a lot of them. You know, like Bannon, one of my marketing guys was like, why don't you just send him the film, then he'll get really mad at you just because you're saying, first of all, I don't know who knows Steve Bannon, but he's just mad at you for just right out of the gate, he was mad at me, and that was how our relationship went. And I like to tell this story, which is that, it's a little aside here, Marty, if you don't mind, but so I texted him and I'm like, I want to do the interview with you, and he like yelled at me and told me that I didn't know what I was doing and that I had only a bunch of losers in my film. This is literally the conversation, and I said, well, I got Hillary Clinton, and he said, you have Hillary? I said, well, I haven't done the interview yet. He said, if you get Hillary, then I'll do the interview. And now he's obsessed with Hillary. If you go to his house, if it's a house, and in the basement, in the basement, he has these pictures of her on the wall, like they're like cartoons, or where she's in these really horrible, she looks terrible. And during the interview, he says, and when it comes to Hillary, I want to destroy her politically. Like there was a pause, right? And then he added that word. Anyway. So I did the interview with Hillary, and then I texted him the selfie, because you have to take a selfie with Hillary. And I texted him the selfie, and I was at lunch, and she was like right where they are. And I'm like looking at her while I'm texting Bannon, and I felt like I was cheating on her, you know? And so he says, all right, fine, I'll do the interview. So we go to his house. He lives in this, well, I think he lives in it. I don't really know. It's they call it the Breitbart Embassy, which I thought was kind of corny. And it's this nice brownstone not far from the Supreme Court. And all the houses are very nice on the block, and they all have flowers. And then you get to his house, and all the flowers are dead. And I thought, this is too much. So that was my Bannon story. But so I didn't tell him. So one of my marketing guys was like, you got to tell Bannon, then he'll insult you on the air, and then you can get everybody. And I don't know that Republicans who are going to hate me and hate this film are going to necessarily want to watch it, although maybe they're the ones who need to see it. But I didn't text it to him because I just honestly was just afraid that he would yell at me. And so that, I don't even remember what the question was.
Well, it was really what these folks, speculating what these folks would say when they saw their words, as you said, in context, in the larger context, would they just say, oh, this is BS, or this
I don't think anybody
spin?
would say it's BS. I just think that they would say that they really believe in these ideas. I mean, and it's hard to, when you sort of hear 5 of them in a row, to think, oh, wow. I mean, it's sort of the repetition is where you begin to see the pattern. Hi, yes.
Hi. It was a very powerful film.
Thank you.
And but I do have a question. You talked a little bit, or Charlottesville was referenced, the Tree of Life synagogue was referenced, but I was curious as to why there wasn't any more discussion of the strategic use of anti-Semitism as part of what you were demonstrating.
For a couple reasons. First of all, I made a film on anti-Semitism in 2020, and I'm making another film on anti-Semitism, and I made a film in 2007 on anti-Semitism.
Got it.
So I'm a little anti-Semitismed out right now. But what I have found is that by and large, and this was about Republican political strategy specifically, and Republican political strategy has done some fear-mongering around Jews, but not huge amounts of it. I mean, the killing of Jews in the Tree of Life synagogue, and we covered that extensively in my last film. We were the only film crew in the world that actually was able to film in the synagogue after the shooting. And, that was motivated by a guy who blamed Jews for immigrants.
Yeah.
That was not a Washington talking point, and it was not, as far as I know, much of a talking point on any places like Fox News. There may have been a few of them. So my answer to that question is, and the other thing was that this was largely about Black and brown Americans, and now whether Jews are white is a whole other conversation that we can have. But I do have another film coming out that's all about anti-Semitism next year, and I hope maybe we could screen it here or not, but hopefully it'll be public, and that can be a much bigger conversation.
Thank you.
I know that we could go on all night, but we do have to go home at some point. I'm very sorry, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming. And Andrew, thank you for bringing us this amazing film.
I'll be here if anybody wants to, accost me.